Oh, is that Jedediah? Yes, that's you.
Oh,
isn't he? And
Go ahead.
that's Jedediah's mother in the black coat, my wife. And just so you know that Annie isn't the only one that can dance. We danced our share. Next slide, please. There is a living room that we had. It's called the living room in England, in southeast London. And we had a coffee house. Everywhere we went, we had coffee houses, had newspapers. They were our evangelistic tools. Just like you have open mic night, that's your evangelistic tool. But you gotta use the tool. We used our tools well. You came into those coffee houses at your own risk. And you didn't leave. You didn't come and leave without somebody sharing the gospel with you.
That's awesome.
And that's got to be your attitude from the get-go. If you're going to build a church, you've got to be sharing the good news. You have a pastor here who can whip out 4 spiritual laws faster than anybody you know. He was trained in it. We all were trained in the Jesus movement and the 4 spiritual laws. We used them sometimes we didn't. But they were great little booklets to have. How many of you have your 4 spiritual laws booklets? If you don't have one, I know somebody who can maybe help you.
Yeah.
Next slide, please. Here we are. Jesus hippies is what they call us, which is a word for hippie in Finnish. That's a train breakdown in Finland in 1972. And you can see Mary Damrow right up there in front. She was here last week. Her husband is up on top of the train because he always was very rebellious. and many of them I can recognize, but it's a little blurry, it's an old shot. But that's how we traveled at times. We were in Finland and had a chance to minister there. I've been there 3 different times. I am a Finnish nationality. That doesn't mean I'm Finnish. It just means I'm okay. Next one. I have no idea where that is or what it is.
Sweden.
Sweden, thank you. And we're out on the street, which is another way we minister.
Right on.
You know, the streets are here. They got streets here in Oconomowoc, and it's amazing.
Yeah.
They got streets almost all over the United States.
Yeah.
Have you noticed? So we don't have to build a street for you to go out and minister on. You can almost just go up there. Next slide, please. This is we did a musical called Lonesome Stone. And it was an idea that just came after eating a bad meal one night. And we, all right, that one person is different. It was an idea. I spent my youth in the theater from 20 to 30, doing legitimate stage productions. And, so God uses the gifts that you have.
Yeah.
He uses your background. He uses your history, good and bad. He's going to incorporate everything in your life. It's not wasted. And with me, it was a knowledge of the theater and how to communicate through that media. And I helped write and put together a musical that ended up touring all of London to rave reviews. General David Jones of the historic General Jones families, Commander-in-Chief of the United States Air Force, saw one of our shows at an Air Force base, picked up our whole troop and flew us to Wiesbaden, and what was the other? Ramstein. And I get letters, even just recently, a letter from a guy that said, "You don't know this, but I was on guard duty or something like that, and I got saved, and so did my friend." and they're still going on with the Lord
That's awesome.
these many years later. And so you can't think too big for God. Just let you know that. You can't think too big. I mean, we started out, we can do a musical. Yeah, we can do a musical, but how big will it get? Well, most people say, well, we'll do a musical and how do you get out of the church? We had a millionaire come alongside of us who, through circumstances, said, "I'll put," he put $1.5 million behind it. So we went first cabin. We had the best lighting, the best technicians, the best everything. And it made an impact across all of England, which is still going on today. Next slide. Oh, that's just doing repairs on a coffee house, but it does show you that you can climb Jacob's ladder. I don't know how many rungs higher you can go, but next slide. Just another, that's interesting, that's Lotsenhausen, isn't it, Mike?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, believe it or not, we ended up on the road, and this is a good little story. What happened, it happened a lot before we met our millionaire especially. We had 2 vans, and then a short time later we had 1 van for 30 people, and all our band equipment. So that doesn't really work too well. So my wife and I and Jedediah were in 1 van with the equipment, and we were in Sweden, I believe it was, and we had to get down to Germany because we knew some GIs that were stationed here. And what was the name of the little town? Lotsenhausen. So we got a brilliant idea, the leadership, which was me. We would take the van. We would sacrifice and drive it. And the rest had a hitchhike. The greatest time of their lives, they still talk about it. They had a hitchhike from Sweden down to Germany. That's a number of different little countries in there. And the stories from that could take up a whole day, just listening to stories of people and their adventures, and how they, some had to sleep in a graveyard, or, you know, and people got picked up by the strangest people. And so that was a story, but it was just a show. It just shows that they didn't say, oh, we have to hitchhike. They took it on as an adventure. Mm-hmm. And it was, like I say today, many are still talking. Now, when we got down there, you would think for all that effort of hitchhiking and, you know, being hungry and not eating for a day or two, that we'd get there and there'd be this luxury hotel. He was there, so he's laughing. Instead, what was there was an old brothel converted to a coffee house with 1 toilet, but it didn't plunge. Couldn't get rid of the waste. You could use it, but you had to take it out in buckets. I didn't do that duty. I have to confess that I assigned that to one of the brothers. Frank indeed does have privileges, but they got very blessed. So that's outside that coffee house there. Next slide, if we have one. Okay, there's on stage during the finale a song called "Rejoice," written by the famed Edad. And it was just a wild, wild celebration. And, you know, people would come forward and people got saved. I think that's the last slide, isn't it? Okay, let's keep on. We're on a roll for the slides. Jesus People Concert, that's how we would advertise it. Double-decker bus. And that's before we cut the top off. We cut the top off because there's a lot of bridges in England you can't get under.
Oh.
So we wanted to go everywhere, so we had to take the top off. Or else you make a mistake and it comes off automatically.
Convertible.
Yeah, it becomes a convertible.